Well, welcome real estate rock stars looking to become a real estate rock and roller. We are smack bang number 3 edition in Rocktober. This is season 2 of Real Estate Rock and Roller. You can see this on Rewind. The first playlist is almost complete, where we've covered a load of facets that you should be looking at inside of 2021. Just a follow-up on what we spoke about at the beginning of Rocktober. And as it's now become apparent to me, Rocktober was more about just a celebration, but so many things that I looked at in terms of productivity that just began to come relatively naturally to me. And one of the things I'm being pressed upon of late, particularly as we come out of lockdown and the listings start to free up and people are looking at the prospects of getting the property sold, I guess more readily now, and being very, very receptive to coming onto the market. But oddly enough, in looking at the market condition, I'm finding that sellers are once again now starting to talk about looking for fee reductions and the like. And worst part about that is real estate agents, for one reason or another, are believing that they have to entertain this. I just don't get it. And I'll say this with the utmost sincerity that I possibly can. Just recognize this, especially you guys. If you're tuned into this, my automatic assumption is that you've been in the game for a number of years and that you are looking to improve or tap your professional capacity to its fullest extent. By that, I mean, increase your listings and sales, but kind of do it in a manner where you've got a relaxed approach going forward. So you're probably, if you're a little bit like me, past the whole ideal of the hard work concept, and you're looking at what lies ahead pretty much with the attitude of, how can I produce my maximum amount and put in the least amount of input? Nothing wrong with that. That's incredibly efficient if you're looking at it that way. And let's face it, by about now, you should be, if you're not already, professionally fit. And you should be professionally constantly training in the same way that doesn't matter how many years you've been running marathons, you still have to do the training on a regular day to retain your fitness. So you should be training, and inside of that training, there'll be lots of things that come up that serve as a constant reminder to what it is that is going on, and maybe some new things. So one of the reasons I'm bringing that up is the thing that I've been banging on about for the last really 3 to 4 weeks as we move out of lockdown and the opportunity starts to present itself, is I recognize very much, because I do listen to a lot of agents out there, that there has been, the general attitude still is that the market is good and it's gone up despite all sorts of things happening, even though governments or, the Reserve Bank in Australia and the regulatory financial authority over in New Zealand, they've raised interest rates. So they're changing their fiscal policy to try to slow this market down because they believe it is relatively artificial. But despite that, people are still thinking it's a-okay. And you've just got to accept that whenever somebody is pushing you around fee, it has very little to do with the fact that you are under pressure, especially as a real estate rock and roller, to reduce your fee. It just simply means they have failed to see the value that you are trying to present. And I will be doing a lot of work on this. As I said, the first series, season 1, is behind us, and I'd welcome you, and I will make reference to it. I say that you need to go back and have a look at it. I'm not trying to show off here when I say to you that I think that's some of the finest work that I have done. I feel quite relaxed talking about real estate in a more advanced light. So those of you that are listening, I just urge you, even if you're in a sales team leadership position or you're running a real estate business, go back and look at it. And you need to find yourself, I reckon, if you are running a real estate business, 3 to 4 agents that fit the bill, that will gravitate towards the sort of training that we're doing here at Real Estate Rockstar, and then just flying on all 12 cylinders, meaning one for each month. Yeah, so this is session 14 of season 2. The first, of course, in that was Rocktober. We introduced Rocktober, and I made it very apparent that it's an interesting, being the final quarter of the year, that we come in, being that final quarter. It's basically spring coming into summer. And of course, we've got November, which then goes into December. And December, for many years, has been a bit of a non-event. We meld that in, which I'll be talking about next week, in the next stage, into November. So we turn December and November into basically a 7-week month, which leads us all the way up. I'm going to show you how we work that. And really, so, and Rocktober is kind of like the springboard. And if you set that up correctly, you can move forward. So last week, I really banged on and really pushed the point about having somewhere between 25, in some cases 50 plus, dependent upon your size and dependent on the volume that you want to do. You need to have an active property seller list where you have identified a minimum of 25 property sellers, active property sellers. Any less than that, and I've got to tell you, I reckon you're in not just trouble for this quarter, but even springboarding or moving into the new year. And that needs to be looked at as well. So I say, if you've built that list of 25, you have any trouble with that, if you have a sales associate in support, we've put loads of training into them in the last 4 or 5 weeks. Initially, we talked to them about the orientation, making sure that when they are speaking to any prospective property owner that's becoming active, that they make their discussions and their conversations centric to the motive, the reason that the people are selling. From this, we move to then showing them how to make that connection, whether it be through rapport, whether it be through further identifying the motive and drilling down. You are welcome to jump on and have a listen to these. So the Property Careers series is out there, and even these volumes I'm giving you the titles of. The first one was orientation. The second one was the connection and how to make it. We then moved into the area of service, passive service and representation of product, not just talk, and all of this done in the pre-list fashion. This is definitely the subject matter which I'm going to share with you right now, and how you can do some work on and around that. Then we've talked about regeneration, so focusing on the listings that you might be having if you've got these sales associates working in tandem with you, and how they need to, the moment you list something, focus on turning that one listing into 2 and running the leverage, understanding that the next seller is already watching you, and the message that is sent to them that emanates is going to make all the difference. And then, of course, into Prospector itself and the new generation of Prospector as it sits. And it's, a lot of the products, a lot of the protocols we talk about, how they're serviced through the Property Marketer Suite, and then what we've done about building those up so that it just makes everything relatively easy for you. Now, this is, of course, so again, that's all to do with the building of the list. And as I said, inside that 25 to 50 plus that you want to build in terms of property sellers, if you're having trouble populating that list, then you need to give directive. If you're an operator that's on your own, then you need to delve into it inside yourself and just look where you know those active property sellers are going to be. First port of call, certainly if you have listings coming in And, you know, this is one of the things I talked to about, you know, Vasco and his team just recently. You know, this morning I was online with Nick Zaparovich and Hannah, who is his sales associate, and of course, Liz, who works or covers a lot of the red stuff. And I was just saying to them, we just need to build that list and identify it. They've gone from last week being under 25 to now being at 30 plus. And now we're focusing on the servicing that runs with them. And they said to me, isn't it funny, the moment we started putting our energy into that, the list started to grow, which it naturally will, because if you are engaging in areas where there are active property sellers at large, you're going to identify more and more of them. So I just keep saying this across. I've said this to the sales associates. I say it's the same to you as real estate rock and rollers. I'm not telling you how to suck eggs. I'm just probably alerting you to what you already know. Put the listing presentation attitude away. Just remain calm. Try to identify the motive. Make that connection. And that connection is best served through giving good passive service going forward. So the first place, as I said, is the sales inquiry log. And that's where you're going to find them. Because as I say over and over again, a quick reminder, anyone that's made an inquiry in the past by way of sales inquiry, whether it be to an open for inspection, whether it be calling out off the internet or otherwise, or calling off of a sale sign, or in the old fashioned way, just coming into the office, they may not have the capacity to buy or sell real estate, but they have the willingness. So it's warm prospecting at worst. You need to focus on that inquiry that's a minimum of 4 weeks old, because a lot of these people are doing that research, but prior to being receptive to the idea of any form of listing presentation or putting the property on. So that's the first place to look. If you're still coming up short, I would be going back over my old contacts. In particular, I would put a lot of energy and focus into people who have bought in the last, going to sound crazy, but last 3 to possibly as long as 5 years. Now, this might sound a bit weird to some of you, but I identified this many, many years ago and did the same thing in and around the GFC. And what I call these are the boomtown rats. These are people who have purchased essentially through what is the boom period. And because they've done that, better way to put it, they've actually bought at the top of the market, they quite often do this in a fashion that's relatively skinny. So they've probably overcommitted themselves somewhat on their borrowings or otherwise and serviceability in and around the loan. So, you know, that pressure and that uncertainty with what is happening going forward, they may look at making the move and taking advantage of what is left, the residual of this boom market now. Now, quite often, if you call them up and you have a chat to them about that, they might be embarrassed at the idea that they've gone in too quick and they're financially stressed. So you've got to kind of catch them off guard. It's a simple technique. I just ring them up and say, how you going? Blah, blah, blah. It's me. How are you enjoying the property? That is, of course, if I did sell it to them, I know that you can source data where it could even be a competitor's property. Say, look, hi, you don't know me. My name's Mark Dwyer. I saw you purchased the property down in 2017. How have you found it? Blah, blah, blah. So listen, the reason for the call at the moment, we've got more buyers. Do you want to sell it? So I'm halfway through saying we've got more buyers and available property, and I self-interrupt and just hit them with, do you want to sell it? This has the effect of catching them off guard, and they quite often blurt it out. This is another area where you're going to find a number of sellers, and if nothing else, you're going to be populating a contact list. That is, of course, if you didn't sell it to them, or just servicing clients that you've spoken to in the past and keeping it top of mind and making the whole thing work. You've just got to get that list up, you know? And if I had to, I'd work my way all the way down, literally speaking. Well, actually, if the next port of call would be the regen, so anything that I've got, look, you may have taken your eye off the ball. I know that this happened with a couple of the guys that I was talking with yesterday and today, where they're talking about they're open for inspections, and then again, the screws are loosened and the open for inspections are more centric to the buyers. I said, hey, you should be recognizing how long has this property been open? And that's actually happened with some areas. I know that in Sydney now, we've just had 1 week of open inspections occurring and we're fully open now. So recognize in the first 4 weeks of all the people that visited open for inspection, 1 in 7, crook finger, 1 in 7 is basically a seller. Now, if you're not getting those numbers, it's not that they're not there. It's that the dialogue and the technique you're using is not identifying them. So again, simple technique to fix that. Get yourself a property seller's research guide or something like that. And when they arrive, or just running the system properly, remember to start with the invitation, that those invitations go out to the first open for inspection, that the invitation does basically say, if you're researching the market ahead of selling, feel free to come and check out our welcome home. While you're there, don't forget to ask our representative for the property seller's research guide. And of course, if you're carrying that when they arrive, you say, look, are you selling, buying or selling? Because for sellers, we have the property seller's research guide. They'll grab it. You've identified them. So that's the next port of call. And to keep going. I mean, if I have to, I'll go all the way down to ringing for sale by owners. I'll go to let by owners. I'll go to the other agents' properties and knock and just say that I have buyers. I'm making sure that I've got the PMBX go out. So when a competitor's listing up, I do the just listed around that competitor sign. Why? I just want to build my number of active property sellers up. And if I have more there than I actually need. So as I said to Nick this morning, we've got 30. Now, if we keep going, that's going to be 35, maybe 40 by the 10th of next month. If we list 10 to 15 of those before Christmas, well, it's game, set, and match. And all we're going to do is love those ones we're with and service those ones correctly so that we get the invitation to come on down. And this is the thing that I really had to make, even to a couple of real estate professionals, peak performance professionals, mind you. I just had to gently remind them of the talents that they have and how to re-engage those talents around the right way. Some of you might know what I'm talking about here. You know that point where you're talking to a prospect, you're speaking to them every week, you're talking about their motive, opportunities are arising where they're making decisions that might not make a lot of sense, and you're just gently giving that advice rather than focusing on price, and just talking to them about the virtues of getting the property on before they go looking for something, and listing is not selling and all that sort of thing. Anyway, you're giving them lots of information and the relationship's good, and then all of a sudden they say to you, Mark, what should we do? To get to that point, we have to over-service them. And I've got to tell you, in this environment right now, just ringing them or badgering them in some cases where you're ringing them 2 and 3 times a week, and with nothing really new to share with them other than just, come on, you're ready. You become a pest, and the whole thing can go, the relationship is no longer personable. It can go into decline and backfire on you. So what I keep saying, and look, this is working with remarkable success, so much so that I've now elevated that thing where I talked about some of the passive contact, and we've moved it into a rigid 9 steps that you take. We are calling this the PreLIST process for APS, the PreLIST APS, which is the PreLIST process for active property sellers. And I'll just run through this and you can get on top of it. Now, for some of you, especially if you've never been on here before, this is going to appear like some sort of commercial advertisement for a whole bunch of products we have available. I do not apologize for this. Yes, it is. And for many of you, you've already got these products on board and you can do something with this immediately, meaning today. So I say the first things first, the first thing that you want to get up and away is the Property Sellers Research Guide. Those of you that are in the Real Estate Rockstar program or are on Steam, you'll be delighted to hear that we've got an even more elevated version. that's going to be put much more emphasis into the beyond compare. I think that it is deserved that those salespeople that are relatively accomplished by way of accolades and a whole range of other things, and their understanding of the mantra of beyond compare, about leveraging value beyond compare, about earning the fee rather than charging it, and everything else that goes with it, deserve to get the recognition and I guess the accreditation. So we've got a new property sellers research guide that is designed specifically for real estate rock stars. We won't necessarily call them that inside the guide, but they will be elevated to the status of peak performance professionals. And they should, well, premium is what the way we're going to market them, that they are premium professional. And if you want to know a little bit more about, if this is new to you, about the beyond compare mantra, if you go back to session M for momentum, session M314, which is actually titled Beyond Compare, you'll get a better understanding of how that works. But this is the first thing. So the first step, once you've identified an active property seller, your list of 25, is to ensure that they have the property sellers research guide. Now, if they have the property sellers research guide by way of picking it up at an open for inspection at your welcome home, or you've actually sent that to them previously in hard copy, no problems. We also have an electronic version, which is largely interactive. This is available for those that are involved in Property Marketer. And we want that to go out. We want that to go to them, which is kind of a confirmation anyway. And when I say it's interactive, from that property sellers research guide, when we talk about the difference between comparative value and market value, we allow them to order a comparative market value, a CMA, a comparative market analysis, from the electronic version. They're also able to connect with you to get some real-time advice, or all the way through to inviting you down to run a listing presentation, as we like to call it, education. Yes, they can book that listing presentation from the electronic guide. The next step is to immediately put them onto the SMS router. Isn't it funny that I was talking to Hannah, who works with Nick Saparovich this morning, and I was making it very clear, because we had talked about this a few weeks before, got a very strong list there, urging Nick to take the time to walk through that list and identify where he's at motive-wise and all that sort of stuff with each of the people on there, and to make Hannah aware. But they've had some extraordinary sales results in the last few weeks, and these have not been sent out by an SMS. And not just this, but by the time I drew through to the list of 9, I said to Hannah, now, if all of these prospects on there had been given the property sellers research guide, if they've received the SMSs, and I'll keep going with some of the other things, but if they've received all of these things, where would you be with them now? She said, oh, perfect. And here's the point that I want to illustrate to you as a real estate rock and roller. This time, once we've identified an active property seller, if you passively communicate with them and largely represent the value in them choosing you, this is why I want to update the comparative market analysis for real estate rock stars. When you turn up to the listing presentation, not only do we aim to pre-sell you, you're pretty much already been pre-sold, but because of the elevation in value and its representation, you are not likely to be taken to task on fee, because, as I've said on numerous occasions, wherever value is present, cost is never an issue. And even if it does come up somewhat, you will be professionally fit and able to handle it. And just let me put it to you this way. I want you to consider, when we get to the end of this list, if you were an active property seller researching the market and all of this stuff had been put in front of you prior to getting to the listing presentation, surely you would have a good handle on the value. And again, from your perspective, if you know this as a real estate sales professional, that you're out there and that value is being represented, how's your level of confidence? How's your level of enthusiasm in getting this on board? So as I was explaining to Hannah and to Liz, just this morning, I said, look, if all of this is done and Nick is aware that this process has been delivered, then he can make reference to it as he's running the presentation, and he can push all that stuff out of there with absolute confidence and not be subjective to a price reduction. Okay, so that was step 2, the SMS sailing of results. Again, I had someone say to me this morning, they feel like, twice a week is a little bit much. Okay, I'm fine. You gauge that, certainly with all the stuff that we've got going out. And I'm really leaving the timing decision to yourselves as to how you want to space this out. But I don't believe you can overservice on the passive. It's just information that's coming to people. It's not you on the phone driving them crazy. So if you think that it's warranted to maybe do SMSs once a week or 3 times a fortnight or whatever it is, that then fine. The only thing I do stress is not more than twice a week, certainly not more than every 72 hours. Okay, so then the next step 3 is to send out a preliminary CMA. I did talk about this just prior to a couple of episodes ago. I know the cover letter that goes with it, that cover letter has to be consistent with what you've said inside the property seller's research guide, making them aware that what you are sending out is a preliminary comparative market analysis that does not have anything to do with your opinion of price. It's just a provision of information of what's actually happening inside the market. And its whole premise is to cause good conversation when you do talk to them and good engagement around issues. So yes, we're alluding to price, but we're making it clear all the while that it's just a subjective opinion, not much more than a benchmark, a history lesson, if you like. I know that Glenn Taylor loves it when I say that. And that its whole premise is basically to cause good engagement and build that professional liaison up and give you the opportunity, I guess, before you ever get near a presentation, explaining that market value is what they receive. It's your job to embellish, to leverage that value beyond comparison and how you can do it. And this starts to take their eyes off the ball of just choosing agents based upon the fees they're asking for and the prices they're quoting for the property. Number 4, this is the new one that's coming out this week, is to invite them to come and see your welcome home. You're open for inspection. Now, again, I've just done one of this with Sean Donovan from Hill and Materi property. And, what I was explaining to them is it doesn't have to be the same sort of property, but if you're going to invite them to your welcome home, you want to be absolutely certain that yours is a standout against the competition. And of course, if you send that invitation and they don't even come to it, it matters very little. There's still cause for engagement around conversation. Having sent the invitation, it's still a good connection of service. And whether they come or not, the fact that you have invited them is still building that value proposition in every imaginable facet. Now, I've had agents say to me, well, what if it becomes too much and they say, look, we're not really serious about selling? I'm like, duh, what's the problem with that? That they're qualifying themselves and you can sort of back off, given that they're now telling you that they're not really going to do anything. So that's just created the right qualification. The next one is the 2View website platform. Now, this is exclusive to our subscribers to Property Marketer. What is this? It is part of the program. It generates a subdomain that utilizes the address of the property to get to it. And it drives that inquiry straight back to you. It has nothing to do with us. No, we're not like one of these big online domains that's going to ask you to pay for this and pay for that. It's part of what comes with the Property Marketer suite. You can offer it to sellers at zero charge, although you might want to say this is what it costs and you're offering it complimentary, whatever. But I then also believe it is yet another little bow, another little feather in your bow of arsenal to market a property, and especially given that you could do this in an off-market fashion, and you do want to make mention of that, because it basically, should lockdowns occur or any other constraints there, or if a competitor's trying to get them on an off-market arrangement, I hope that this might give you some sort of advantage. This is very simple. Stuart, who works with Ange Soralis, he sends these out with great regularity. He says it has been a real good blow in getting them to see value against themselves and the competition. So that's number 5. Number 6, that you get out a market roundup, which is your newsletter. You've got to keep that newsletter lean, but it needs to go out. And please, if you're taking notes, make sure it goes out the same day every month without fail. When I say keep it lean, we write them for our clients who are subscribers to Property Marketer. But it's very simplistic. We give them in less than 100 words what the condition of the market is, and then we give them a run out of roughly 10 to as many as 15 sales that have occurred in the area, and then smatter it or sprinkle it, if you like, with a bunch of accolades, people that have done business with us. We're updating that right now. So the version in Prospector 4 that will be coming through Property Marketer will have a lot of quick reference notations on what the current interest rate and cash rates are, you know, for you to populate it with things like what the clearance rates are, the number of properties that come on the market, the number that are sold, what your market share is, that sort of stuff, if you choose to use it. Number 7 is a pushing of your accolades. Now, if you do not know what I am talking about, if you go back to session 10, M314, which is titled Accolades, it is our word for testimonials, recommendations, whatever you want them to be. Nothing is more powerful to someone who is in the throes of trying to determine which agency they're going to use and equate value with what they're going to get, what they're going to take cost against what they believe they're going to get, that if you've got good, strong accolades from previous clients and you can shoot those out, this is going to make the buying decision easy. And I want to make this very, very clear because I'm talking to advanced real estate sales professionals. Do not put your energy so much into trying to convince or persuade someone to buy something. I'm not saying that you don't do it. I'm just saying don't put that much energy into it. Try to put more energy into creating a product that is relatively easy for someone to buy. It's kind of a no-brainer. So it's important that you're actually pushing those accolades. So often I see this, that agents just forget, whether they're bashful, shy, or just downright lazy, they take their foot off the recommendation accelerator. Now, I'm only going to say it very simplistically for you. The moment I got my head around this, I had, in 80% of cases, 80% I would get accolades, 8 in 10. And they were perfect. You know, it was always a smattering of people who just didn't want their photo taken, didn't want anything to do with it. But the reality was I was making over 100 sales a year, and more than 100 clients a year were there by way of photos and otherwise. It was overwhelming. So whenever I was struck an impasse, all I did was pull these out and put them in front of a client. I would say, all these people can't be wrong. They're all sellers and they're all got smiles right across their faces. And they all paid, in my day back then, 3%. It was an inarguable disposition. And if you haven't done it, it's okay. It starts today. And build it from today. The next one is, I won't put too much energy in it other than to say that we're creating case studies. I believe this is paramount again, as it was when markets were oversupplied years ago, when it was hard to actually get people on, when the market for listings was more competitive than ever. We focused very much on case studies, on being able to say, here's the property, this is the marketing product they chose, this is the results they got, this is what they had to say, and fleshing that out so that people can track it. And then you can make a very easy recommendation around the marketing product they should use, and hopefully it's an easy decision for them to go and buy. And step 9, last but by no means least, is for you to present to them specific buyers you have for the property by name. And this needs to be documented. You don't need to give them contact details, but the more you can tell them about those buyers and where they're at, the more you completely mitigate any opportunity for a competitor to get under your guard. And indeed, again, you just make it easy for them to see, well, there's evidence that they've got buyers. So I'm not going to be, shimmied into this argument that I've actually got to give them money to find buyers. Now, look at this, not from your perspective. I want you to understand this is not much more than a process. If you initiate this process and it's going beautifully, it's very simplistic as to how you approach this final quarter, which will not only give you that springboard into this year, but also the springboard beautifully into the year that lies ahead, and you start off January with a bang. Look at it from that seller's perspective. So all you need to do is identify 25 plus sellers, and then immediately send them the PSRG, the Property Sellers Research Guide. Make sure you're SMSing them a couple of times a week with sales results. Get them a preliminary CMA, invite them to a welcome home, show them your 2View marketing platform, which is an individual property website that can be utilized to market for them specifically at no cost whatsoever. Sending them the market roundup and giving them information. Those accolades are in front of them. So too are the case studies, and you've told them about buyers. What else is there, guys? I reckon you've just made it very, very easy to buy. And I hope that you embrace this going forward. So I'm back. No more lockdown, no more long hair, no more Santa Claus beard, but without the beard, maybe, but I'm still bringing you presents. So come on, guys, jump onto this and let's forever and a day be the real estate rock and rollers that we are, and tap that potential so you are as good as you can be. My name's Mark Dwyer. You can reach me at Mark with a K at realestaterockstar.com.au, or you can telephone me on +61 410 592 165 if you want me to set you up personally with a plan and everything else that you need to make this a reality. I'd love to have you on board.